So in this video, we are going to look at how you do some basic audio editing in DaVinci Resolve. Audio is very important in video, even though you're looking at something. What you hear often implies the overall quality of the video. So whilst there may only have to be, in video terms, minimal editing, we're not doing fancy color corrections and we're not doing crazy edits. We're simply just topping and tailing what people send us from their phone usually. It will be very normal to have to modify every single audio track that people send us. So I'm just going to show you the basic things that I do that don't take very long at all, and that will hopefully give you an overview of what to do for every video. So in terms of what we upload to Upline Church, I wouldn't class this stage as optional. If everybody can get to grips with it and learn how to do it and do it consistently, that would be great, because consistency is the word. It will give us that same quality across the board, and it's especially important if various members of the church, so various of us are editing the videos. If different people are contributing and editing and uploading different videos that appear in the same service, then they all need to have the same overall loudness and what we call equalization of the track, so they all sound similar, because otherwise the one that hasn't been done well is going to stand out and people may notice. The main thing is to get the volume correct, and we haven't always done that right, and I'm guilty of that myself, because it needs to match the sound loudness, so the overall volume of the other pre-recorded YouTube videos that we put in, so like the worship video, so that there isn't this big jump in volume when you go from spoken word and then into a music video. So I've basically opened up Resolve. This video won't go into how you use that. Look at the other basic instruction video for more details on that. But I'm going to open a previous video that I know is correct for sound, and that should give you a clue as to what the major thing is to do when you're editing audio, and that is have a reference. So listen to something else that sounds good and sounds the right volume, because your ears will tell you what sounds right, but if you listen to the wrong thing, then you don't know what you're comparing against. So here's one I prepared earlier, as Blue Peter would say, and we're just going to listen to a bit of what Clive is saying. Sorry. Now, the tab we want to use in Resolve is called Fairlight, and that is down the bottom of Resolve. Now I'm just going to go up here and come out. Sorry about that. Ignore those clicks. Resolve seems to have decided to make itself full screen. So sorry if you can't see the writing down the bottom here. And let's just see if we can go full screen window. Let's turn that off. So if you've got it like that, then you may not see. No, it's done the same. Okay, ignore that. I'm just trying to figure out why I've lost some of my names, but down here this note button is Fairlight. Sometimes it comes up and actually says Fairlight, but that's disappeared like that. So when you're looking at a video, click on the Fairlight tab, and that brings you to the audio editor. Now this green strip here, this is all the audio to do with the video. It doesn't actually show you what you're viewing, apart from up in this preview window here. So if we hit and press play,
I'd like to ask you to recite the 23rd
Clive.
Psalm, please. Bit surprised. The actor agreed.
Now I'm just going to stop it there. There's a few things that we're looking at. Overall, we are looking at the waveforms. So these are essentially individual words and phrases that Clive is saying here. And this is the overall amplitude or volume of those sounds. Now you'll notice here that this is kind of the bounds of the audio, and this is the limit of how loud something can get before what we call clipping occurs. Now this means that the sound is too loud for the audio circuitry to reproduce, and you get just a distorted, nasty sound. Some computers handle this better than others, but the golden rule is you don't want that to happen. Now here you'll see a line across the whole track, and this basically tells us the this is called an automation line, and this will allow us to turn up and down the volume. Now I'm not going to do editing on Clive's video because it's already edited. All I wanted to show you is a few things that you need to look out for as a reference. So up here is our meters section. You can see that next to the preview window, and this is what we need to pay attention for. Now you can see that some of the peak values have like frozen in time, and that's what we need to look at. So you can see a short peak of about 5, and then over here we will see kind of the main output meter, and again when it gets between this -10 and -5 we will see it go red. So I'm just going to play it again.
But then said, I'll do that,
we're
but
peaking
only so
about
long as you
2.5.
agree to do it after me.
And up here, the highest we're ever reading is
Rather
maybe
reluctantly, the gentleman
+12,
agreed.
and kind of hitting
so
again around that.
The actor recited
5 number
the
on the short
23rd Psalm with as much passion as he could arouse.
But overall, the actual best way to judge the loudness is to plug in a pair of headphones and listen to a previous video on the YouTube channel to gauge the overall volume. So you'll learn how to do that if you just pick a half decent pair of headphones and listen to it there. You'll then say, oh, hang on, I've made that track too, the track I'm working on, I've made it too loud compared to the reference track, or too quiet. So use this video as a reference. It was the sermon on the 17th of May. It should be live on the YouTube channel, so just go and have a quick look, or certainly look at maybe even the first online service that we did. So when I did all the liturgy, because I was quite careful to make sure that all the video was at the right level, that the audio was at the right level for all those. So yeah, just go and listen to something like that to judge the overall volume. So now let's quickly go out of here and go back to Project Manager, and then let's open up the video with Robin in it. Now you can see here that we've come back straight into the Fairlight page, and then here we can see that we can't actually see the waveforms. Now that's not very helpful. So if we go here at the bottom edge, can you see that, of the audio track in the title box, then we get a resize. So I'm going to resize it nice and big. Now it just so happens that this is a stereo file, but that's okay. Resolve will automatically link these. It will work as if it's just one, so don't worry about that. And here again we can see our automation line, that when we hover over it we see those up and down arrows. Now this is the first stage of what we're going to do, and I'm going to do this without even listening to the audio track. I'm going to click and hold on that automation line, and I'm going to drag it up so that I'm making the waveforms bigger, and then I'm going to stop about there. I don't want anything to peak, so you can see the tops of the lines are not peaking. And I'm also going to make sure this slider up here will make it bigger and smaller, so I'm going to size it down so I can see the whole of the video in one section. Let's just make that slightly bigger. Yeah, that's enough of it. So I can just check and look over the whole track to make sure there's nothing that is peaking. And here it is slightly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take it back a bit. And you'll notice that the left and right channels are slightly different, but I'm just going to make sure that it doesn't peak there. It looks like it might peak there. Okay, that's probably as far as we can go. So that's the first adjustment. Just make sure it's all okay. Now the second thing we're going to do is come over here to the mixer section, and we're going to go to the effects part where there's a little plus, and I'm going to hit plus here. Now ignore everything that pops up, well, ignore some of the things that pop up in this window because I have other plugins, so you may not have them on your computer, but the things I'm going to show you come installed as default with Resolve, so everybody should have access to this. So I'm going to go down to Dynamics and then Fairlight Effects, and then I'm going to click on Limiter, and that is the only plugin that we are going to use. Now before I've even listened to anything, I'm going to turn this down, and I do this by clicking on the knob and then moving left to turn it down and right to turn it up. So I'm going to turn it down to about -2. It doesn't have to be exact, and even in here you can type if you want to, but I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to click up here in the timeline so I get to part of the audio, and then just hit spacebar to listen to what it sounds like.
After this service, if you wish to take part in a virtual fellowship, get yourself a cup of coffee and join us at 11 o'clock on Zoom, the details of which will be on the screen at the end of this service.
Now you can see that we're pretty much there. We're maybe slightly bit quiet, but you know, Robin's volume is pretty okay, so we only actually need a tiny bit more volume, so I'm just going to try that. You see this, I'm just turning up the input level here.
And can also be found on the Upline Church Facebook page. This gives us a chance to catch up with each other and see how we're doing during this lockdown, and more recently since some restrictions have been eased. If you want something slightly different, Axe Valley Mission Community, of which we are a part.
Now hopefully you'll find that we've kind of roughly matched the volume, and again I'm hitting kind of the right levels. I'm kind of up here in the red.
Are holding a live Rogation Sunday service
And again,
at 11 o'clock today.
Here I am, I'm kind of roughly at about 2.5 dB or -2.5 dB on the master meter. Now here's a little quick tip, because Robin is actually panned more to the right than the left. We could fix that, but we can fix it in many ways, and I'll just show you a quick way, because sometimes people's video comes in with only one channel, so it might just come in the left channel, and there's a way you can fix that by, let's just find it, going to tools. So let's do that again so you see it right from the start. So down here, if we go to tools, Fairlight Effects, and then Stereo Fixer, here we have a very simple plugin again that is just going to fix that audio. So here I'm just going to click the mono button, and again that should sort out any kind of stereo stuff with Robin.
Visiting all 8 churches in the community. Details and links can be found on the Honiton D.
Now what you'll notice is now it's actually gone too loud, and that's because we've combined both the left and right channels into the same channel, so the volume has gone up by 3 dB. So actually what I want to do is turn it down a bit. Now this is very unusual, we don't usually need to do this on all channels, on all tracks, but because I've gone mono, yeah, that needs to be done. So now if I hit play again,
and their Facebook page, as well as the websites and pages of the individual churches in this mission.
There you see I went down from +2 dB gain down to -1 dB, so that's a change of 3 dB, and again things came back to the normal level. Now that was a bit extreme, we don't really need to do that. Probably it's a bit more pleasant to hear it in stereo, so let's just go back to stereo, or indeed we can just remove this plugin by going up here and just saying delete plugin. So now we'll go back, it's too quiet again.
Reverend Clive Cedric of our mission community will be talking to us later. So let's now just settle ourselves before God with this prayer.
Now just a general guide, a usual input gain is probably somewhere from, I've observed, about 2 dB up to maybe a maximum of about 7 dB. If you need to go higher than that, there's probably something seriously wrong, or just make sure you double check the level, because I found when you kind of go above that, then maybe you've made it a bit too loud. But always check back to a reference. That's an important thing to do, because it's quite easy just to creep the volume up and you don't notice. And where that will become really evident is when it goes into a playlist, and then the liturgy or whatever will just be out of sync, or even the spoken word will be louder than a worship video, which can sound quite odd. Now, the final thing I want to show you how to do in this video with editing is how you could actually change the EQ. Now, Robin is maybe slightly boomy in this video compared to Clive. So if we want to get rid of some of the boom, let's just go back. So we're in a main part of the speech. We can click in the EQ section here. So again, in the master track M1, we're going to double click on EQ. And here we have an equalizer, which is what EQ is short for.
If you want something slightly different, Axe Valley Mission Community.
Now, to get rid of any bass boom, it's actually quite hard for me to judge, because I am evaluating it to my own voice, which I'm hearing in headphones, and that always sounds quite bassy. So Robin sounds kind of normal, but I'm sure if I compared it to other tracks, from memory, this track is sounding a bit bassy, and it's actually better to listen to the bass of a track on some decent speakers. But I'm not listening on those at the moment. But the bass is in the low frequency area. So for those of you that haven't looked at a graphical equalizer, or this is called a parametric equalizer actually. Here we have volume along the side of what we call gain. So this is louder, up to plus 20 dB down to minus 20. And from left to right, we have frequency. So it's in hertz. So a low frequency, we can see 31 hertz mark there, up to a high frequency of 16 kilohertz up here. Now, the boominess that we hear in people's voice is a low frequency, and the easiest way to do that is to put what we call a low cut. So we are cutting the low frequencies, sometimes referred to as a high pass filter, because we are passing high frequencies. Now here we can see it's shown by this little shelving symbol, but actually it's turned off because it's not in red. So if we click band 1, we will see it comes in, and there we go. We are rolling off those frequencies. So I'm going to turn it off again so we can hear the difference. Start playing Robin's track, and then I'm going to turn it on.
If you want something slightly different, Axe Valley Mission Community, of which we are a part, are holding a live rogation Sunday service at 11 o'clock today, visiting all 8 churches in the community. Details and links can be found on the Honiton Deanery website and their Facebook page, as well as the websites.
Now, did you hear that difference? Hopefully you did, and hopefully where I've roughly set it should sound better. We've kind of taken that boominess out of Robin's voice, and again, depending on what people listen to on, that should hopefully give a more pleasant sound. We'll just hear a little bit more of the same section, and hopefully I'll just roll it back and forward again so you can hear the point at which it maybe sounds good to you, and you might choose something slightly different, but a lot of this just comes with playing around, seeing what it sounds like, and again comparing it to a known good source.
If you want something slightly different, Axe Valley Mission Community, of which we are a part, are holding a live rogation Sunday service at 11 o'clock today, visiting all 8 churches in the community. Details and links can be found on the Honiton Deanery website and their Facebook page, as well as the websites and pages of the individual churches in this mission community.
Hopefully you can hear the difference there. I was just kind of playing around, rolling it off, so we didn't hear that boominess in the bottom of Robin's voice. Now, another thing is that if people don't have very good microphones, Robin's sounds pretty good here. I think it's coming from his iPhone. We can lose some of the high end or the higher frequencies from people's voices, and this is typically what gives it kind of that hi-fi kind of sound. So I'm going to play around and show you how you can boost and cut this in quite a drastic action, but we don't need to do any of that for this track, but it's just so you can hear it. So if it sounds slightly muffled, it doesn't sound clearer, you might want to try playing around with this. Now we don't want a cut again, we actually want a boost and a cut, which is in band 5, which is thankfully turned on. And if I just do it without any audio, you can see, there we go, we're going up and down. And again, the high frequencies in the voice start from about 4 kilohertz, which is around here, maybe a bit higher. You'll see I'll just play around with it and listen to what we hear.
If you want something slightly different, Axe Valley Mission Community, of which we are a part, are holding a live rogation Sunday service at 11 o'clock today, visiting all 8 churches in the community. Details and links can be found on the Honiton Deanery website and their Facebook page, as well as the websites and pages of the.
Now you may have noticed if you take it too high, you just get more sibilance. So that's the S's on what people say. So again, if you boost it too much, it's going to sound a bit weird. But really, you just have to learn to use your ears, and it just comes by practice. I've been doing it for probably over half my lifetime now, so I've become very used to messing around with audio. But yeah, you can't. Well, you can get it wrong if you make it dreadful, but you can't get anything wrong just by playing. So the best thing to do is to spend, 10-15 minutes just playing around with this, finding out what it does. That if you get some odd frequencies, and again, this isn't a good example, but if you get something that's really bugging you, the general tip with EQ is if we play
this
it,
service,
and then I'm just going to pick a band like this. What we do is you boost first and then you cut. So I'm going to have quite a wide curve like this. You can see my bell curve is fairly wide. I'm going to drag it round, find anything I don't like, and then I'm going to cut. So I'll show you how we do that now.
After this service, if you wish to take part in a virtual fellowship, get yourself a cup of coffee and join us at 11 o'clock on Zoom, the details of which will be on the screen at the end of this service, and can also be found on the Upline Church Facebook page.
Now, a good way, say we don't like that frequency, I'm just playing around. I mean, it does sound a bit odd, but I wouldn't usually mess around with it to this degree. But we've got quite a wide boost, but now what you usually do is you make the cut much narrower. So this is called the Q, as you can see like that, the Q factor. And this affects the shape of the curve. So if I increase the Q, that makes it very narrow. And then if I decrease the Q, that makes it very wide. So then if I have a very narrow, tiny little notch filter.
This gives us a chance to catch up with each other and see how we're doing during this lockdown, and more recently, since some restrictions.
Again, it makes it much more subtle, but that's generally the tip for EQ. You boost to find the offending frequency, and you use it at a lower Q, so you're basically sweeping a wider range of frequencies. And then when you found the midpoint of the frequency that you don't like, you then cut, and then you probably increase the Q, which makes the sharpness of the filter much more precise. So you're taking a very thin slice out of the frequency spectrum from the voice. Anyway, could talk for hours on EQ and how you mess around with it and various other things like dynamics and DSs and things like that, but we don't really need any of that. So these two things are probably the most you're going to have to do on videos. So first of all, limit it, and then maybe put in a bit of EQ if there's too much bass on the voice, and you might need to add a little bit high end if the mic sounds pretty dreadful. So that pretty much covers all the audio. I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of another problem that you may find that Andy has been struggling with, and that is if your audio is out of sync with the video. So now we've come back into the editor here, and if I right click on both of these clips, I can see that they are linked, because down the bottom it says linked clips. The audio might have dropped out a bit there, so it says here that it says linked clips. Now if I unclick that, then you'll notice that I can click on the video and the audio independently. Now if you can do this already, then don't worry. Resolve has brought the audio and the video in separately, so you don't need to unlink them. But if they are linked, so if you click on it and they're both red, then you first need to unlink them. The second thing you need to do is up here in timeline. You need to make sure that snapping is turned off. Now for me, I've already turned snapping off, so I would just need to go this timeline, untick snapping, and that then means that you have much more precise control over how you move the video. The third thing you need to do is probably increase how much of the just increase the zoom on your timeline. So again, you have much more fine-grained control over moving things around. And then you simply click on the audio track and drag it left and right. In actual fact, I can't drag it to the left because what has actually happened is it can't go any further left. So if you did need to, if the audio was slightly late, and you did need to drag it back slightly earlier, again, you'd have to make this slightly shorter and then just slightly drag the audio back earlier like that. And again, the best way you will fix this is just by listening to it. So I'm not actually going to mess around with Robin's audio because it is perfectly in sync, but that's how you can move the audio around in relation to the video, and that's how you can resync audio if for some reason Resolve has dragged the videos in and they are out of sync. Hopefully that's been some help. Ask if you need anything else, but most of the audio stuff, like I said, is done in this section, in the Fairlight section. So have fun, get your headphones in, listen to some reference tracks, and then try and edit from there. Have fun.